you never follow someone who's a genetic freak because they're not normal. You want to ask the guy who's the hard gainer, hey, how'd you get big arms? Because you must know the secrets. Ronnie doesn't know the secrets. Ronnie just knows hard work. The more I do, the better I look. That's not the case for most people. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind, to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever's on your mind, bodybuilding or non-bodybuilding, Olympia-related, diet, training, supplementation, it is all on the table. Your 30-minute forum with Dave Palumbo. We have a lot of questions. We appreciate the spike in participation recently. I'm not sure if that's a result of the suspension a couple of weeks ago or what, but we're very happy with the feedback, with the collaboration, really, with the RxMuscle community that we've had on this show and the rest of our programming lineup. So, as always, we appreciate all the support you provide us in this run-up to the Olympia, and as always, for the rest of the calendar year. Speaking of the Olympia, of course, the Olympia now 30 days away, 30 days till prejudging. We are kicking off our Iron Road to the Olympia. We appreciate our support from our friends over at Muscle Tech. We're going to be sponsoring our Olympia coverage. So the run up to the Olympia, the Iron Road to the Olympia, and everything that we have planned for you on Olympia weekend, which of course will feature the return of Dave Palumbo live at the Olympia in Orlando. Let's go to the questions. The first two questions, of course, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. What would you recommend to add volume size to the upper chest? Incline press and incline dumbbell flies are great, but I've never been able to achieve that upper chest shelf. Is there a certain programming that seems to work best? Maybe I'm being too impatient and changing it up too soon.
You know, I had that problem when I first got started on building upper chest. I had good shoulders, but I didn't have I was shallow in here. And number one, I think guys try to go too wide. So you want to get about a shoulder, maybe a little wider than shoulder width. When you're doing it, you want to, when you get on the incline bench, first of all, you don't want to get a bench that's too steep. A lot of guys use these benches. They're that's what the gym has. It's like 45 degrees. It's too much. At that point, I would almost go into like a power cage and use a bench and put it on maybe like a 30-degree angle. Like it almost should be almost flat, but just a little angled up, just so you're on an incline. Because first of all, no one has weak lower pecs. If you have weak lower pecs, it's because you have a gynecomastia and you probably just need them removed. The problem is the upper pecs are not big enough. So I try to do almost everything even with a slight incline on it. And the key is when you lay back on that bench, you got to keep your chest up, arched, and your lats back. And the problem is that when people get to a point where the weight gets too heavy, they start to do this and roll their shoulders forward and use their front delts just to squeeze the weight up. And that's a problem because what you're doing is you're getting bad habits and you're removing the upper pecs from using the movement and you're starting to use your delts. And that's just normal because people just want to push as heavy a weight as they can up. You have to train yourself so that when you can't, in this position, bring the weight up anymore, you got to have a training partner give you a little help. And when you're a training partner, has to give you so much help that you're not doing anything anymore. The set's over. So a lot of times I might do 4-rep sets, 3-rep sets. I stop as soon as my pecs no longer can do the movement, and I feel the need to have to cheat. If you do that on a regular basis, what will happen is you'll never cheat anymore because you'll remove that bad habit that you have. And that's 90% of the people who can't build upper chest. That's the problem. They're not keeping their chest up high enough, or they're on a bench that has too steep of an incline, and they are too preoccupied with getting the weight up, no matter how they do it, to get 1 or 2 more reps. And what they're doing is they're basically learning bad technique. So you have to kind of almost like stop as soon as the pecs stop working. Even if you have to lighten the weight up a little bit, that's okay at first. You need to retrain yourself how you do it. Now, one of the other tricks I used to do is before I would train upper chest, I would, let's say I had to do a cc of testosterone or something like that for a shot that day. I would put it into a 1 cc insulin pen, and I would actually put a half cc in this upper pec, upper inner, and half cc in this upper inner pec. Now, that little bit of testosterone is not making anything grow, okay, because I'm putting it locally there. What it's doing is it's swelling. It's causing an inflammation in that area. And what that does is when you're training, because it's inflamed, you can actually, your mind and your muscle are connected there better because you can feel the inflammation. I just felt it enabled me to squeeze that area better when I was training it, because it almost like it gave it a little volumization because of the inflammation in there. And I know a lot of people that have done that over the years and gotten good results from it. It worked really well for me. And actually, another thing that really helped my pec development was after I got my gynecomastia surgery, okay, you get a little bit of scar tissue here. Everything gets really tight in the pec area, and it just enables you to feel the pec more when you're contracting it too. So I felt those 2 things definitely did help as well. The gyno surgery and the upper inner pec injections, just on the day, like right before you go to the gym to train it, seem to work really well. Sometimes the next day or later that day, you might get a little you might get some locking or cramping in that area. But I felt that it gave me a little edge to be able to learn to train those pecs. Once you start developing that area, it's a lot easier because you can feel it. But initially, it's very difficult, and you have to really maintain really good, ideal, pristine form.
Second question, again, these questions from the Dave Palumbo experience. First of all, you got a sick shirt on right now. It's a really, really sweet shirt.
This is our new sponsor.
Check it out.
Rest When Dead clothing. I've been getting a lot of compliments for this at the gym. People love it.
It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff from Rest When Dead.
And this is only, I got to get more design. They have a lot more designs. You go to the website and check it out, but I got to get some more designs from them. You know me, I like black shirts, so I think this was the coolest one, but they're going to be sending me some more because they just extended their advertising with us. And I love it because I think they, look, there's so many good companies out there that have good clothing that it's who's ever got the freshest type of designs, I think, that are the things that people want to wear. So you got to keep refreshing it. Old School has really good designs. We've worn their shirts before, and I still wear their shirts. I like this company because they're something a little different. And people, for some reason, really like that Rest When Dead slogan. In the gym, I got a million compliments. And sometimes I don't even know why people even compliment me. I forget that I have the shirt on. Speaking of shirts, little side note, I was at the eye doctor yesterday, and this guy, older guy, probably in his 70s, says to me, he goes, "Oh, Heavy Muscle Radio." And I'm like, how could this guy possibly know Heavy Muscle Radio? I'm like, you listen to the show? He goes, "I was in radio." He goes, "But you're wearing the shirt." I forgot I was wearing the Heavy Muscle Radio shirt. And he's like, and he went on to tell me about how he owned 4 radio studios in Utah, and he knows his history in radio goes back into the 60s, And we were talking about radio and how to sell advertising, and how he sold his studios right before, in 2008, right before kind of the internet started dominating with podcasts. But he got out when he should have. But now it's all, he was explaining to me that radio, no one can make any money in radio anymore because all the internet radio podcasting systems, kind of dominate, and they charge 50 cents, for advertising. Whereas, you want to advertise on terrestrial radio, it could cost hundreds and thousands of dollars, So it's an interesting dynamic how the industry has changed. So I guess, what happened to magazines because of the internet is exactly what happened to radio stations because of the magazines as well.
Speaking of shirts, maybe if you guys want to send me some too, that'd be sweet.
All right. I actually gave them your address.
No. I'm playing. They actually just sent me a shirt a couple of weeks ago. I wore 2 episodes straight. Yeah. So if you guys want to restock my collection. Anyway.
Sid likes the free t-shirts. Yeah.
Back to the question. Again, these questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Any correlation between red meat and cholesterol levels?
People always thought that, if you want to lower your LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol carriers, that you should eliminate like red meat and saturated fats. And I always thought that was something wrong with that. I didn't see a correlation, because of all the stuff I learned and read about in school, it always seemed like high cholesterol levels were number one genetically, kind of like there's a definite genetic component. But the second component is it seemed like at least from what I learned from Scott Connolly, that sugar was a way bigger, I guess, exacerbator of high cholesterol than anything. If you eat a lot of sugar, it for some reason causes your body to synthesize too much cholesterol. And that's really what they found. And even the American Heart Association a couple of years ago admitted that a diet high in saturated fat isn't a real, cause and effect to raise LDL cholesterol. They said it was more carbohydrate based, believe it or not. I'm shocked they actually admitted that, but it is true. So eating red meat is not going to raise your LDL cholesterol. Eating sugar and a lot of carbs will. Now, if you're genetically predisposed, it seems like you can do anything and your LDL will be high. I have worked with people where we've made their diet impeccable. All fish, anti-inflammatory type diet. I've put them on essential fatty acids like OmegaLyze, macadamia nut oil. We put them on a fiber, like my fiber product. These are all things that normally lower LDL cholesterol. And their cholesterol might go down 10 points and they're still at like 270 for LDL. And you should be under 100, okay? So, the genetic component is something that we just don't know how to deal with. And a lot of times they just put you on like a statin, like a Crestor or something like that. But in those situations, it might warrant it. And the way you can tell is you can go for a cardiac CT scan and see if you have any blockages. If you're starting to develop plaque formation or you're starting to develop calcium in your coronary arteries at a young age, then and you have high LDL cholesterol. And I'm going to do a video on LDL cholesterol because most people have around 80 to 100. That's average good supposedly. But they're saying that with people, that they want to get people down to like 30 or 40 LDL, which is, I don't think I've ever seen mine was pretty low at one point, especially when I was running. It was never even close to that. So they're saying that that's the only safe level, which is what, like a newborn baby would have, So, as far as lowering cholesterol, my suggestions, once again, a good essential fatty acid supplement like OmegaLyze, a good quality soluble fiber supplement like FIBERLYZE, absolutely. Monounsaturated fats coming from extra virgin olive oil, macadamia nut oil, avocado oil, a couple tablespoons of that a day. That will definitely help as well. And, watch your sugar intake, eliminate sugar. And I'm telling you, the rest is not really as important as those factors. Now, if you ate red meat every single meal of the day, I can't imagine that that's good for you. Okay. It's an awful lot of saturated fat in your diet. And I think that you'd be throwing off the balance of the good fats and the bad fats. So that would increase inflammation, and that could seriously, obviously, indirectly cause your LDL cholesterol to be a little higher. So doing foolish stuff is never the right answer. But I don't think if you're having a steak every day or a burger, once a day, I wouldn't worry about your cholesterol level going up, But if you do have a genetic issue, you got to address it aggressively because you don't want to wait until you have blockages in your coronary arteries. Now, these questions both came from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. I want to thank you guys. You guys have been supporting that app for quite a while. We have a lot of members. I know you guys really enjoy it. I do a Q&A every single week just for the app members, where we do a video a week. I take the best questions from the app. I also answer everyone's questions in the app in an open forum. You see everyone's questions and answers. All my videos I've ever done, all my educational writings are in there. We put up a workout every week so that people can have something different to look forward to. And all my diets are in there and all my protocols. So it's a great, great resource. You guys can download it at the iTunes store or the Android store. It's $29 a month. Check it out.
We'll take questions now from Facebook page. If you're not following us on Facebook, just look up RxMuscle. On Instagram, official_RxMuscle. Nathaniel Copperfield, what would you say is the average cost a pro bodybuilder has to pay in order to compete for a single show? Please include travel, hotel, trainer, food, supplements, super subs. Then let's compare this to the amount of prize money. Obviously, that's a different topic, but let's talk about the breakdown of expenses for, let's say, again, an experienced, maybe not pro or experienced bodybuilder.
You know, I couldn't even begin to tell you how much it costs. I'll tell you one thing. I never, ever figured out stuff like that because I didn't want to know. Because I'm a dollars and cents guy. I don't like to waste money, but I don't want to know when I'm doing something that I'm passionate about. I don't want to know the cost. As long as I know I have enough money to cover it, I don't want to know how much I'm spending because I don't want to have any guilt associated with what I'm doing. And, you know, look, even when I was making good money, and even to this day, I don't fly business class unless I get upgraded for free or there's a special deal or something like that. I don't have a problem. Sid, you know this. I've stayed in hotel rooms with a lot of the people who worked for us. I didn't feel a need to have my own hotel room every single time we went to a show. So I'm about not wasting money, you know? And so at the end of the day, you know, bodybuilding is expensive. You know, you could spend $2,000 on a steroid cycle for a bodybuilding competition, or you could spend $8,000 because you're taking growth hormone, and growth hormone adds a considerable cost. Some people can't afford the $8,000, so they're gonna maybe not use GH, and they're gonna go with the smaller cycle. Likewise, the cost of entering these shows is astronomical nowadays. So, you know, if you just won your class at a show because there was only 2 guys in the show, and you know you're really not ready for the national level, even though you may have been qualified, you might want to think twice about it because you're going to have to pay $300+ for an application. That's just for one class. A lot of times people enter more than one class. You're going to have to buy a hotel that more than likely will be at least $200 per night or more. Okay. You're going to have to buy food, which could equal another $1,000 at the end of the weekend. By the time, you know, especially if you go with someone like a girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever, you know, that's going to add. You're going to have to pay for spray tanning, which is another $150 or more. Okay. If you're a woman, you're going to have to buy, you know, a posing suit, you know, which could be $1,000 right there. Hair, makeup, which is another, you know, $300 easily. And, you know, it adds up, and you're going to have to take a taxi from the airport or Uber, whatever. That's going to be, you know, it could be $100. It's a very expensive endeavor. So unless you know you're going to do really, really well, okay, at a national level show, I don't advise just going for the experience. It's a super, unless you have the money to burn. You're better off getting more experience on a local, regional level where you can actually drive to the show, and it's going to cut back on your expenses, you know, tremendously, because the application fees, you know, and I didn't even mention the NPC card you have to buy, which is, I don't even know what they're up to now. It's probably over $100 at this point, probably $150. So there is a lot of expense, and I could never sit down and say, this is how much it is for every single person, because everyone does different stuff. Everyone eats different. I know people that will eat tuna every single meal. And then there's guys that like to go to the, you know, Whole Foods and buy salmon, wild caught salmon and filet mignon. And that's going to cost, you know, that could be $600 a week right there in food, if, you know, just because you're buying high-end groceries. So it really depends, but you can economize. There's the ways of doing it. I remember watching Kai Green. If you ever watched the video I did with Kai Green when I was at Muscular Development, I know it's floating around YouTube someplace. You know, he would go to the supermarket by his house, and he would buy, you know, like 20 pounds of tilapia, the cheapest he can get. And, you know, he'd buy them in the biggest packages, and he would just, you know, that's what he would eat every single meal, because that was the cheapest way to go. So it really depends on what you want to do. You can make it as expensive or as cheap as you want it, you know, but it can be done. And it can be, if you're frugal. When I first started and I didn't have money, I never went out to eat ever, because it was just, that's like a whole week's worth of groceries if you spend $100, you know, going out for dinner. But as I started making money, things changed. So you know, you have to start out according, and you know, budget yourself according to, you know, where you're at in life. If you're 20 years old and you don't even have a job, probably shouldn't be spending a lot of money, But if you have good income, maybe you have a good YouTube channel or a social media following and you're making money from it, knock yourself out. It's really up to you. And it's hard for me to give you one set number.
We got a lot of good questions here. Some, I guess, in the philosophical end of the spectrum. So let's go to this one. It's from NY Bigger. Without sounding like the old guys with back in my day stories, do you feel like gyms today have lost some of the camaraderie? In the late 80s, 90s, I trained in various New York City gyms, Johnny Lat's World Gym, Better Bodies, Elmo's Gym, etc. In most cases, it felt like, and I'm not sure many of the younger audience is going to get this reference, but there was a show, Cheers, right? Where it was about a Boston area bar where basically everybody knew one another. So he says in most cases, it felt like walking to Cheers when I would go into the gym. So basically walking like, hey, oh,
Norm.
Yeah, Norm, exactly. These days, I feel like that vibe is gone. What do you think? If you agree, why do you think that is?
I don't necessarily I kind of disagree with that a little bit. I go to the gym by my house here, Crunch Fitness, and I've been going to the same gym now for over a year. And maybe it's different because people know who I am, but I got to know everyone, and the same people come at the same time every day, pretty much. And I strike up conversations with a lot of the people there, and if I was training at the level where I was training back in the day, I would probably be hooking up with guys there who would be able to spot me, who I would be working out with. And you build up that camaraderie. I think there's more camaraderie among young people versus professionals like me who are working a business. I run to the gym, I do my workout, I get out of there. Back in the day, I would spend the whole day at the gym. I would go there, I would hang out a little bit, I'd drink a shake, I'd work out, I'd drink another shake after the gym, I'd be talking with people. We made a whole day affair of it. Sometimes we would hang out at Bev's gym for hours, at a time, do cardio, take a break, come back, maybe an hour later, I'd go to the supermarket first or something like that. So I still see that. Like when if I go to New York and I go into Bev's, you see it, you train there. There's a lot of camaraderie in there. Those guys, it's the same guys from 1995. Okay. The same people are training there still at the same time. It's amazing. I go in there at night. I'm like, I know everyone still.
Yep.
And I haven't been there in 9 years or 8 years, whatever, however long I've been here in Florida. It's just, it does exist, but you have to find the right gym. I think a lot of these corporate gyms like the LA Fitnesses, the Planet, Fitnesses, they just don't have that because that's not what they don't even want that at those gyms. They want it to just be this gym where 1 million people are in there and no one really knows anyone and everyone just kind of does their own thing, films themselves for social media and gets the hell out of there. That's not the way it is. But when you see gyms like a Gold's Gym or you see like more of a bodybuilding gym atmosphere, pretty much everyone knows each other because everyone needs help. You go to the gym and you're lifting heavy weight, you need someone to spot you. Once you start asking people to spot you, start talking to them and you build up that repertoire with them, I think it's there. It's not the same as it used to be, but I think it's still there. If you talk to a lot of people who have been training for more than 2 years, because a lot of people just get into it, they'll tell you, oh yeah, I know everyone at the gym. I know Jim and Bob and this guy and that guy, and this guy competes and this guy's girlfriend competes. And you build up a network of people. Don't be afraid to talk to people at the gym too. I think a lot of people are from COVID, they're so in their own little bubble over there. I talk to everyone, and people come up and ask me questions. They think they recognize me or something like that. And we talk and before you know it, you're making friends with everyone. I think that's important because it's a supportive atmosphere there when everyone is kind of there looking out for their health, trying to put muscle on, doing their thing. This guy's sick. This guy had a hip replacement. That guy had cardiac surgery, but everyone knows, everyone's there to encourage each other. I still feel it in a different sense because I think I'm of a different age now. I'm older, but if I was younger, I think I would still feel that camaraderie there. I really do.
No, I absolutely attest going to Bev's. Depending on what time you go there is a certain crew that you will see. And you kind of know exactly who's going to be there at night. If I train it late at night or whatever, or if I go, in the morning after dropping my kid off, you know exactly who's going to be there. But it is really cool. But I think it is a bit of a mix as far as, obviously cultures like that and cultures like some of the more corporate gyms where maybe it is a little bit impersonal. But I think, you know, again, if you are looking for that hardcore bodybuilding vibe, you will find that, and you will find the camaraderie as well. I don't think that has gone away.
I mean, go to Flex Lewis's gym
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Tyler and Hide's gym. I guarantee
Yeah.
you'll feel that camaraderie there. There's no doubt about that.
100%. Big John games, again, another, I guess, philosophical one at that point. I'm sure I'm late in this one. It's a topic I'm sure you've covered 100 times. I see this all over YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, wherever. There is a dangerous idea that a lot of people still believe that all someone has to do is take gear and they will clearly be the biggest or one of the biggest guys around. I've tried to warn these people time and time again. They laugh at me. I tell them, if you are not genetically gifted in the first place, gear is not going to make you a champion. They laugh at that notion. I promise these people there's a guy at whatever gym you work out at anywhere in the world who takes 10 times the amount of gear that pros use and look like nothing. Once again, they laugh. So again, your response to that notion, to those who believe that all you really need to do is inject and you will be up on that Olympia stage.
Yeah. Again, it's like the girl who doesn't want to get too big at the gym. And I always tell them, I say, you know what? Go to the gym and train like you want to be Ronnie Coleman. I said, like you want to be the Arnold Schwarzenegger. I promise you it won't happen. And if you do get too big, I'll tell you, you know what, you better cut back. But it'll never happen. I said, so yeah, people just assume that, you know what, if I take steroids, I'm going to blow up like 30 pounds of muscle in 6 weeks. And it's, you know, that just, and then when they take it, they get so disappointed because they don't even make any improvements. And they can't figure out why. It's because their diet is not good. Their training is not good. You know, I had this conversation. I was in the locker room today, and a real big bodybuilder guy who's I know from the gym. He had moved back to Texas. He was here visiting, and he was introducing some of the younger guys to me in the gym. And they didn't even know, ironically, they didn't even know who RxMuscle was or who I was, which is amazing. And once I showed them, they were all like, oh my God, this is a great channel. I can't wait to start watching it and following. So young kids don't necessarily know where to go. But, you know, we were debating, you know, whether the gym itself, okay, why the bodybuilders were better in the 90s and early 2000s than they are now. And I said, you know, they're really not better. I said, I think they were more focused back then. And what I mean by that is that when you went into a gym in the 90s, there was no distractions because there was no social media. The only place that you could find out about anything about a bodybuilder would be a bodybuilding magazine. There was nothing else. There was nothing. Cell phones were basically just getting started. You were lucky if you can call someone on your cell phone and get reception. Okay. That's how. So when you went to the gym, there was nothing to do there. You know, you went there to train and that's it. There was nothing. You listened to the music they were playing. That's about it. Or if they were playing a bodybuilding video on one of the VCRs that they had there, you would watch that. So there was no distractions. Nowadays, when guys come to the gym, they have to film themselves. They got to get social media content. And you know what? I don't blame them, because if I had social media back in the 90s when I was at my biggest, I probably would have had, 3-4 million followers, and I would have felt obligated to get content every time I went to the gym as well. I would be telling people to film me while I'm training. And you know what? Maybe I would have been distracted. Maybe I wouldn't have trained as intensely. Maybe I would have said, oh, I'm making good money on social media. I got, because I'm a freaky, 300-pound bodybuilder, and I got, 2 million, people subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I get a check that's bigger than any supplement company can give me. But back then, the only way you can actually make money was if a supplement company sponsored you. And supplement companies sponsored everyone back then, because the only way that the supplement company could be noticed would be to have an ad in the magazine, because there was no online. And so everything fed each other. So I don't blame the bodybuilders nowadays for doing social media, even though, in theory, it sounds great. Don't do it. Don't open your phone. Go to the gym and train. It's not realistic. These guys are making big money from the YouTube channels, from their Instagrams, from all their social media followers and all the coaching they're doing. They have to do, that's their job nowadays. There is no supplement company sponsors. Maybe 1 or 2 people have a contract. Most people do not. And they have to make their money the old-fashioned way, hard work. And so I don't blame this generation at all. They're still big, but maybe they're a little distracted in the gym. And that's the only thing I can say. And they're distracted for good reason, because they're making money from it. It's like they're doing their job while they go to the gym to do their job, if that makes sense.
Let's go to Ian Chambers. best protocol for aldactone leading into a show?
I hate aldactone. There's a couple reasons. Number one, if you take aldactone inhibits the hormone aldosterone, which is an adrenal it's an adrenal steroid compound that actually makes your body retain sodium and water. So when your aldosterone levels are high, you absorb more sodium and water. And why would aldosterone be high? Because you don't have enough sodium in your bloodstream. So your body says, well, we need more. So it releases aldosterone. Now, aldactone blocks aldosterone. So what it does is it doesn't allow your body to retain sodium or water. So you basically just pee it out. The problem is if you get rid of too much sodium and you start cramping, okay? Yes, you know what's causing the cramping. It's got to be a sodium depletion because aldactone is potassium sparing. However, you can't just eat sodium and fix the problem because you're taking aldactone, which inhibits aldosterone from working. So it's hard to correct the cramp from aldactone. Whereas if you're taking like a diuretic like Diazide, you're just flushing out sodium. If you flush out too much, you eat more and it replaces it, no problem. So I don't like aldactone for that reason. Aldactone also happens to be an anti-androgen, anti-androgen, anti-testosterone. It blocks the effects of testosterone in the body. Now, a perfect example is, and a lot of people don't know this, I didn't know it either, but when a man decides to become a transgender woman, the one drug they give them to block androgens is aldactone. That's right. Like all these swimmers you see, the Leah Thomas, all they're taking, the only thing that makes them different from being what they were before to now is they take aldactone every day. And it acts as an anti-androgen and blocks what the effects of testosterone or any kind of male androgens on the body. And it kind of neuters you essentially a little bit. So probably not a good drug to be taking, for bodybuilders. Now if you took it for one day, it's not going to be a big deal. But a lot of these people are taking it for weeks at a time. So you're actually, reversing or inhibiting the effects of the drugs you're taking. So aldactone is just not a good diuretic to use. There's no reason to use it whatsoever. You're better off using Diazide. Why? Because you can fix the problem if it occurs, meaning that you start cramping, you deplete too much sodium out, you can always put it back in. With aldactone, it's not so easy.
Let's go to Joseph Orablo. Do you cut out injectables or compounds like Winstrol suspension the last week before a contest?
In fact, no, I don't. I actually increase it. So if you're doing like fast-acting injectables, I usually go to every day the last like 4, 5, or 6 days. So if you take, let's say you're taking Trenbolone 50 milligrams every other day, I'll probably go to every day, the last week. If you're taking, pills, any kind of pills, definitely keep them in, including the day of the show. If you're using like a suspension, which is, in and out in a day, the only reason I might not take a shot of suspension the morning of the show is because sometimes it can leave a welt. But back in the day for a while, there was no Trenbolone around. It was only Parabolone, which was a long-acting Trenbolone. There was no Trenacetate. And so what guys would do is they would actually do halotest in the last 2 weeks, which people still do to this day. But they would also, one of the little techniques was they would take a shot of test suspension like the night before in the morning of the show, just to really jack androgens through the roof. And it seemed to do well. I used to carb up really nice when I would do that. And so you just had to be careful that you didn't put it in a place where maybe if you took a bad shot, it would swell up and leave a lump. But usually that wasn't an issue. And so, I mean, I don't see my issue with stopping stuff is if you look great a week out, why would you change anything? Because you're just looking to screw yourself up at that point. Now, if you're a watery mess and things don't look good, which that should never be the case unless you're cheating, you might want, like sometimes I'll pull growth hormone out like 2 weeks before, especially with women, because they get a little watery fluid retentive from it. But the anabolics, especially that women are taking, there's no fluid retention like Anavar and Winstrol tabs and stuff like that. For most men, fluid retention is minimal, and usually we use a diuretic to get rid of that. So I don't like to change too many things the last week. I just think that when you do that, you're opening yourself up to making the person look worse rather than better.
Let's go to raw muscle glutes. How about that? Oh
Glutes.
my God. How do
On
I
the
recover from
glutes.
that one? How does one come off an extreme or severe calorie restricted diet phase and transition back to a normal or higher level of caloric intake without rebounding and adding body fat? Should you slowly add calories back in, just add extra protein first? So I guess a good rebound.
You know, I found that, when people gain a lot of weight, like a week or two after a show, that 99.9% of it is water weight. And they're just rebounding off the fact that they took diuretics, they restricted sodium, they restricted drinking for a couple days or whatever. And their bodies is just rebounding in the other direction. So it's holding water. So what I usually tell people, if you gain more than 10 pounds, like in a day or two, take another half a diuretic, like a half a Diazide, just to flush that extra water out. If you went to the hospital, like when I had my heart surgery, for instance, and you come out of surgery, for some reason you're retaining ridiculous amounts of fluid. I don't know what causes it. Maybe because they're stopping your heart. Your body I looked like I was 300-pound bodybuilder again. My arms were like huge, and I still had some veins. Believe it or not, most people don't have any veins. They just look terrible. And they pump you full of Lasix, for a couple of days. Actually, for almost a week, they're injecting you with Lasix like 3 times a day to push that water out, so you'll pee that water out. So you don't want to retain, if you're retaining water, okay, you don't want that. That's not good. It stresses your heart out. You feel terrible. There's nothing wrong with taking another diuretic to get rid of that water until your body kind of regulates itself. Because even if you're taking a half a Diazide, for a couple days in a row, as long as you're eating salt and drinking fluids, eventually your body is going to equilibrate itself and you'll be fine. So that's a big mistake people make. As far as how to kind of, what people say, refeeds or get back to eating normally or a good rebound diet, I usually tell people, look, you've been eating 6 meals a day. Okay. Usually what I do is I have people continue to eat the 6 meals a day and I add carbs in. So a lot of my guys, maybe when I depleted them out, they would be following like a protein fat type of diet where they're eating maybe, 40 to 50 grams of protein, 15 to 25 grams of fat per meal. And then I'm going to add in like 35 to 45 grams of carbs per meal. So, times 6 meals, you're getting about 250, 280 grams of carbs a day for a male. Obviously, a woman would eat a little less than that carb-wise and protein-wise. And what I tell people to do is have a cheat meal once a day for 2 weeks. Now, what that does is it gives you something to look forward to. See, because what a lot of people do is they just eat everything in sight after a show. They feel terrible. And then they go back on the diet because they feel so terrible. But then after one day of doing that, they cheat again because they can, because they're not dieting for a show anymore. And it's this vicious cycle. So I know people are going to want to eat whatever they want to eat for 2 weeks at least. So rather than let them just gorge all day, you allot 1 meal per day where you can have a cheat meal, anything you want. And the rest of the meals are going to be like this protein, fat, and carb, like allotment that I just gave you. And that seems to work well because it takes that edge off. It gives them the cheat meal where they want to have it for breakfast. They want to have it later in the day. It doesn't matter. And by the end of 2 weeks, they're so sick of having a cheat meal every day that they're done. It's out of their system already. And then their body's ready to kind of start regulating itself. And that seems to work really well. And it took me a while to really develop that little system, because at first I was just like, well, eat whatever you want for 2 days and then we'll put you back on the diet. But then invariably the cheating continues because it's never really out of their system. So rather than let them cheat 4 times a day for the next 2 weeks, I let them cheat once a day for the next 2 weeks. And the fact that they know they have a cheat meal every single day, it gives them something to look forward to. So that's my technique.
Take a couple of more questions. Wolf Lover, please settle this, Dave. I'm on 300 mg a week, testosterone, cypionate. Does backloading into an insulin syringe and pinning every day stop the conversion to estrogen versus pinning half a cc twice a week?
No, look, if you take 10 milligrams of testosterone a day, a certain percentage will aromatize, meaning convert to estrogen. Okay, that's just the way it works. So if you're taking 1,000 milligrams a week, okay, in one shot, you're going to aromatize, let's say 10% at least, or 15% of what you're taking. If you space that 1,000 milligrams into 7 single shots to add up to 1,000 milligrams, you're still aromatizing 10% of each injection, which adds up to the same amount. So it's not going to stop the drug from aromatizing at all. You might get nicer, blood levels of the drug, but with a long-acting injectable, you could get away with, I think, 3 injections per week will still give you very, very steady blood levels of it. And I don't think you have to go more than that. I think people are getting carried away with these little micro injections they're doing like every single day. It's a pain in the neck to take a shot every day. No one wants to do it. It sounds cool for the first 2 or 3 weeks because you're so excited you're on steroids. Then after that, it's like, holy man, I got to take another shot today. Oh, and then you wind up forgetting to take your shot. And then before you know it, you're 2 days behind, and then you're trying to play catch up. So my suggestion is every other day injection protocol is more than adequate, 3 times a week. Especially most people are using long-acting injectables. So it's not like it has to be injected every day. Like, I mean, if you're going to tell me, hey, Dave, I want to take test suspension. I don't want to take anything else with it. I'd be like, you really should inject the stuff twice a day, not even just once a day. You should inject it twice a day because it doesn't last that long in the system. But if you're doing a long-acting injectable with it, there's no reason to do that because you know what? You have a baseline of testosterone there. And then every time you take the fast-acting stuff, you can get the peaks and valleys. It won't matter because you always have a baseline on board. And that's just the way I've always done it. It works really well. I think people are always trying to recreate, the wheel, so to speak. Well, yeah, they did it every other day back then. I think every day is better. And if we microdose it under the skin subcutaneous, it's even better. Nah, that's okay if you're doing like, HRT levels. If you're taking a lot of volume, you don't want to be injecting this stuff under the skin. Believe me when I tell you that. And you certainly aren't going to want to have to take a shot every single day. You're going to feel like a pincushion after you're done. So trust me, 3 times a week is fine.
Let's go to, we got a FIBERLYZE related question from T Malzone. Can I take your FIBERLYZE before bed or is it better first thing in the morning? I guess if you want to then outline best times to take FIBERLYZE.
Yeah, I don't think there's any specific time that you have to take it or not take it. By convention, I usually take it. I always say I want to do it mid-afternoon. It always winds up getting later and later. I probably take it around 3 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I take it before bed, which is around 11 to 12 midnight. So it's almost every 12 hours. I mean, probably ideally if I remembered, because I don't like to take the fiber when I'm taking my vitamins. So sometimes I forget and it's hard to stagger it. But ideally 11 and 11 would be nice. 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. If you can do it. But even if it's not 12 hours apart, you can do them 5 or 6 hours apart. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're getting your 2 doses in per day. Because if you only take 1 dose of it, what's going to happen is when 8 hours after that dose you take, you're going to be pooping great. And then the rest of the day, you're going to be like constipated. So you're really 2 doses will make you feel perfect and will detoxify you, especially if you're eating 6 or more meals per day. If you're only eating 3 meals a day, you might be able to get away with, once a day, but I highly recommend twice a day.
Let's go to, there was a question about Dorian, and here we go. Tony Wynn, do you think the Dorian way of high-intensity training is a forgotten system with today's professional bodybuilders? Most videos I see today does not seem to have that same devastating effect that blood and guts did.
I don't think a lot of people, even in the 90s, did the Dorian system. I think there were a lot of people who tried it, but I think a lot of pros always did more volume because they just like going to the gym. And a lot of those guys don't have real jobs, so it's not like they have to rush in and out of the gym. So they'd rather do extra sets because I remember I was talking to Paul DeMeo once, and we were talking about the high intensity system of training. And I said, I've been doing Dorian's routine, except I'm doing a little bit more volume than Dorian did, probably doing 6 to 10 or 12 sets for most movements, for each body part. I said, but I was doing 25 before that. I know a lot of guys, Paul's like, yeah, I do like 25 sets, 20 to 25 sets. He's like, but you know what? He goes, if I didn't go to the gym and do that many sets and I was in and out in 20, 30, 40 minutes, I would be bored out of my mind all day. I enjoy training. So some people do more by convention just because they like to go to the gym and train. I always felt that my body did better on less volume, more intensity, because I tend to overtrain real easily. So for me, it worked really well. Some guys can get away with more volume. I never, ever suggest doing crazy high volume because I just don't think that anyone can recover from that adequately, at least. And, same thing with cardio. I mean, I see people say, I like high intensity cardio better. Well, guess what? High intensity cardio is like weight training. And if you're doing it every single day, you're going to overtrain as well. The most important principle of the Menser Dorian system of training is that rest is vital to grow. And most bodybuilders tend to be OCD. We tend to want to overdo it. More training is better. If we have a weak body part, we'll train it 3 times a week, right? But that's the wrong thing to do. If you have a weak body part, it means it doesn't recover well. You want to train it less, not more times a week. And so I think that that's a huge mistake that people make. It's mentally kind of ingrained that if you want to improve something, you have to do more. But really, what Dorian and Menser and Arthur Jones before him showed us was that intensity is more important than volume. Intensity also goes along with how much weight you're lifting. So if you can lift the heaviest weight possible with the highest intensity, meaning output, ensure you engage those muscles to the maximum, getting every last fiber to lift that weight, that's how you're going to make the best gains, because you're going to break down the most fibers, and then you're going to repair those fibers bigger and better than they were before, and you're going to make gains and improvements. Just going through the motion using volume is not going to engage fibers that are not being used, because the body doesn't need to. The weight's lighter. The body doesn't need to use all the fiber types or all the fibers in that muscle to lift the weight. So it uses just what it needs. And you never, ever get into those deep fibers that really, really give that grainy 3D dense muscle look. And once you can get into that fiber type, amazing things happen. Now, Ronnie Coleman was weird. He was an anomaly because Ronnie did the high intensity level training with high volume. And somehow he recovered because he's a genetic freak. So he was lifting heavy. He was using full range of motion. He was giving 100. He was doing what Dorian was doing. And he was doing a lot of sets on top of that. And he was training each body part twice a week at one point. How he did it, I don't know. That's why you never follow someone who's a genetic freak, because they're not normal. You want to ask the guy who's the hard gainer, hey, how'd you get big arms? Because you must know the secrets. Ronnie doesn't know the secrets. Ronnie just knows hard work. The more I do, the better I look. That's not the case for most people.
We'll take one more question. I know this episode is probably one of the longer ones we've recorded, but we have so many questions that we will not get to on this episode. But again, we appreciate all the support that you've given us really over the last few weeks on this show, and the input, the amount of questions, the quality of questions. So it is very much appreciated. This one's from BA85MEZ. I'm sure this has been asked before, but what's the best time of the day to inject Test E? I do cardio in the morning at 7:30 a.m., weight training at about 11 a.m. Would that have any effect on the dose if I was taking it in the morning? Keen to hear your opinion. Keep up the great work.
Same as I said before, it doesn't matter. Your body doesn't know when you're injecting. It's irrelevant. You can inject it in the middle of the night. You can do it first thing in the morning. You can do it before you go to bed. It does not matter, because these compounds do not act immediately. It's not like you're taking a caffeine pill and in 5 to 10 minutes, you're going to feel the effects of the caffeine. Steroids take a long time to kind of do their thing, so to speak, especially the longer acting compounds that have to get into your blood. They have to be released from the ester they're linked to, and then go into the circulation and go to the androgen receptor. That doesn't happen immediately. So you can take a shot and then go to the gym. You're not going to get any benefit from it. You can come back from the gym and take a shot. You're not going to get any benefit from that shot, not for another day or two, probably afterwards. So it doesn't really matter. Do it when it's convenient for you. That's my best advice.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, thank you for all the questions you asked from Facebook, Instagram, obviously the Dave Palumbo app. So we're very appreciative of your input on this show and all the questions that you've been asking us over the course of the last 2-3 weeks. We will go right into the Iron Road to the Olympia starting tomorrow. So expect preview segments, episodes of Iron Debate, athlete interviews, some of the biggest names competing at this upcoming Olympia, and a whole lot more starting this week. Again, we thank our friends over at Muscle Tech for their support of our coverage of this and previous shows over the course of the year. They helped us with our Arnold Classic coverage, last year's Olympia, so we are very, very appreciative of their support, and we look forward to bringing you wall-to-wall coverage in this lead up to the Olympia, and then, of course, everything going on Olympia weekend, which, of course, we'll see the return of Dave. Dave will be in Orlando, joining myself, Chris Aceto, our videographer Kaz. I believe John Romano might even be there. Dave, who else? I know you took sort of a straw poll yesterday and after hours. We might have quite the crew in Orlando in about a month or so.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly who's going to be going. So a couple of guys are still indeterminate. Like, I know I was talking to Carlo Filipponi last night, and because he wants to pick up Greg and bring him to that Apollon gym that Lee Priest is going to
the All-Star meetup. Yeah, this weekend.
So he was going to pick him up. I said, yeah, if you don't get him, Carlo, he'll never come. I said so. And then I was asking him. He said he might come. He hasn't decided yet if he's going to come to the Olympia or not. And I told him, I said, I'm going just because it's driving distance for me. It's pretty easy. So I can't say no to that one. It's a 2.5 hour ride for me. And I know that obviously Chris Aceto is going to be there. Romano hasn't decided yet. We're not sure if he's going to be there yet or not. And I'm trying to think who else.
I know you asked Amina Lai as well.
I know, George Tuliano. What's his name? Oh my God, Dr. George. He's coming. I haven't met him. We've been trying to meet each other for like the last 5 years at shows. He'll be there, and I know a lot of people coming in for the Olympia, especially Europeans and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be packed there. I really do.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a great show, and it'll be nice to catch up with everyone else and I haven't seen in a couple of years. I talk to everyone all the time, but it's different when you actually in person. You get to go out to eat with them, you hang out. I love sitting next to Chris when we watch shows because all we do is scream at each other. Did you see this person? Did you see that one? Listen, what do you think about this? The whole show we're yelling at each other, and it's very funny. So
from a personal perspective, it's going to be cool for me because so last time you and I covered the Olympia together was 2018. Think about how long ago that was, and really how much has changed since then. And I say this also from the coverage perspective because remember 2018. For full disclosure, I mean this is better translated as in we kind of snuck into the place. That's basically where we were at that time. Now, obviously, things are a lot different under Dan Solomon. They, have really taken care of us and allowed us full access to everything. But again, being in the pit, I'm usually with Chris Aceto, with our videographer Kaz. So I have not had that experience with you yet. You know what I mean? So that's going to be cool for me, to see what that's going to be like. So, but I'm looking forward to it. I know, we're going to have a lot of cool things planned out. Now that you're going to be there, we're going to have some different content ideas as well. Usually it's been the same format for the last, God knows how many years. We cover the press conference. We do a press conference wrap up. Then we do meet the Olympians at night on Thursday. Then we upload whatever, the whole big medley of interviews. Sometimes if it's a standout interview, we'll do that individually. But I think the fact that you're going to be there, we'll see if we could, go beyond that a little bit, maybe bring some behind the scenes stuff. Obviously Chris coaches half the lineup there. So we'll see if we can do anything behind the scenes, any, prep stuff, anything around the town or whatever like that, some unique content ideas. So I'm excited for that. And I think the fans are going to be excited for what we're going to bring them in a chorus of crazy to think. 30 days.
I think we should just go to I think we should just go to one of the amusement parks there and just
that's
chill out. 2 hours.
I'm in. But what we do need on a serious note, and I don't know again if say Romano is not going to be there. We do need someone to anchor the coverage of the live stream, which is
I got to talk to Kamali.
Really think about it.
Kamali's going to handle that for us, but we'll
that'd be great because
when it comes
to give you the viewers some perspective. Let's just take the average episode of After Hours or Heavy Muscle Radio on a good episode, and I mean good episode with a lot of people tuning in. We'll max out north of 400, and I mean if it's something crazy like a breaking news item. 500 plus, right? But that's really for special instances. Usually we're probably in the 300 to 350 on a good episode. Olympia night, prejudging. I remember this specifically. Prejudging last year, after prejudging let out Dave and the crew went live, at a certain point, we were north of 4,000 live viewers on YouTube.
And it was like 4 a.m. too, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because
it's really late.
That it was in Vegas. This year, obviously, is going to be in the East Coast, Orlando, so a lot more accessible, obviously, for United States based viewers. And then, for those overseas, it's a bit of a more tenable situation as far as time. So we're excited as far as what we're going to be able to bring you from being on site in Orlando, having Dave there, and then of course, with whoever's going to be able to man our live cast or whatever as soon as prejudging and finals lets out. So we're going to have you covered in both directions. It's going to be a lot of fun. Keep it locked. We're starting the Iron Road to the Olympia. So all the preview segments start now. Iron debate, breakdown, analysis, and of course, athlete interviews between now and the first weekend of November. That's going to do for Ask Dave. If you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of those upcoming Olympia preview segments. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. As always, we appreciate your support on this show and everything that it is that we do right now on the channel. All new episode of the After Hours podcast, Heavy Muscle Radio. Of course, Lee Priest and Jimmy the Bull's new show, which we are experimenting now to go live. Last week we did a Friday night. We're going to see maybe change it around some other nights, but we like that whole live feel. Obviously, the live audience getting to interact with Lee Priest and Jimmy the Bull and the new dynamic that they bring. Again, hilarious new show. If you haven't already done so, it's called The Confessional. It's an absolute banger. Check it out.